Hey guys, your extra challenge for today is to take really good notes and do a quick research project on one of the things that you learn about in the video today that sounds interesting and you'd like to know more about. So if you do that, just send a picture to me and let me know what you researched and what you learned. So by the end of 1939, all of Hitler's plans were falling into place. He had control of Czechoslovakia, he had control of most of Poland and Austria as well. So he started to set his sights outside of the German-speaking lands. He was setting his sights on France and Belgium, Norway, the Netherlands, and Denmark. Cale is going to tell you about the Nazi invasion of Denmark and Norway.
In my presentation, I will explain why the Germans invaded Denmark and Norway. So they wanted to invade Norway to establish a successful trading route with their mining company in Sweden to make it easier to get the iron in the winter. To invade Norway successfully, they had to invade Denmark because it had an important port there. So, they started this operation a while back, but they didn't put it into action. They put it into action as soon as they got the news that the British, knowing the Germans wanted to invade Norway, and the British who also had an eye out for Norway for the very same reason, started digging out a canal, dug out a cliffside to block a canal so that the Germans couldn't get through. So the British did this. Norway didn't take this very nicely, and the Germans took this as a first move. So they put their plan into action, invaded Denmark, which Denmark just completely surrendered immediately. So that was pretty easy. So they started going to Norway. So they also started this because our Norwegian gunboat guy, he didn't stop a British warship from sinking or capturing a German cargo ship. This caused Germans to get mad at Norway, change their view, and attack them. So the attack was successful, but it took a little bit, almost like 5 months, to get Norway. So Norway actually fought back, unlike Denmark. But evidently, after they took some troops from France, the battle for France, they took over Norway, and that was the end.
So Cale told you that the Nazis invaded Denmark and Norway on April 9th of 1940. By May 10th, the Nazis invaded France, Belgium, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands all at the same time. So France, Belgium, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands. Also on May 10th, Winston Churchill became the Prime Minister of Great Britain. By May 15th, 5 days after they invaded, the Netherlands surrendered to the Nazis. By May 26th, the Allied forces had been pushed all the way back to Dunkirk in France, and they were trapped on the beaches. So Winston Churchill and Great Britain organized a rescue effort to evacuate the troops that were on the beaches of Dunkirk. By May 28th, Belgium had surrendered to the Nazis. So the evacuation effort became more desperate. They eventually ended up sending civilian boats, fishing boats, merchant ships, anything they could get. Pleasure boats, they sent them from ports like Dover across the English Channel, which is this area of water right here. Sent them across the English Channel to Dunkirk to rescue them and bring them back before the Nazis could get there. By June 3rd, the evacuation had ended and the Germans began to bomb Paris. A week later, on June 10th, Norway surrendered to the Nazis. On June 14th, the Germans entered Paris, the capital of France. 2 days later, Hitler installed Marshal Pétain as a puppet leader of France. And on June 22nd, France signed an armistice with Nazi Germany, leading northern France to be controlled by Nazi Germany, and southern France was called the Free State. The next day, Hitler toured Paris as a victor. So the Germans controlled northern France and had Marshal Pétain as their leader, who did whatever Hitler told him to. And in the south of France, Charles de Gaulle was the free leader. On July 1st, 1940, German U-boats, or their submarines, began to attack merchant ships in the Atlantic Ocean. On July 10th, 1940, Hitler turned his sights on Great Britain, and the Battle of Britain began. He began bombing strategic targets, trying to prepare for a land invasion of Great Britain. He started with airfields and factories, trying to shut down the British war machine. By the end of August 1940, the first German air raids began on London, the capital of Great Britain. In retaliation, the British began bombing the German capital of Berlin. One of Hitler's beliefs that he espoused in his book Mein Kampf was this idea of a master race. He believed that white people were the most evolved of any other humans, and he believed that disabled people and anyone pretty much who wasn't white should be killed. So he felt confident enough by the end of 1939 to begin rounding up political prisoners, anyone who disagreed with his idea of the master race or what he was doing in Germany, and anyone who was sick or disabled. He rounded them up as well and shipped them to concentration camps where they were forced to work, and if they couldn't, they were killed. I showed you the areas that Hitler had taken control of, and next I'm gonna link to a YouTube video that tells you about the Blitz. That was the air battle for Britain. I've also linked to a video about Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox, and the battle for Africa. That's why World War II was called a world war, because it was fought on so many fronts. And major battles were actually fought in Africa, so I'm gonna link to that as well.